and welcome to episode number 2 of the Planet X podcast. I'm Chris.
Dos episado. And I'm Mike. That was for our Spanish listener.
For our Spanish listeners, yes. Well, however many of them there are.
And I'm not even sure if episado was right, but it sounded good. That's my Spanish is broken.
Yeah, that's really just kind of typical American Spanish, where you just
put an O at the end of
at the end of a Spanish English word. You know, pass me el biro.
No. Important things like that.
No, I know. I'm just
cerveza, por favor.
Yeah, I mean that obviously.
Peligro. No es cerveza. If I'm ever lost in a Spanish country, I can always order a beer.
Yeah, which is all that you really need to do.
Dos cervezas.
That's really all you need.
Yes. See,
if you have beer, life is good. We have beer, so life is good.
Indeed.
So anyway, we'll get this episode started off with something Mike and I did on Thursday night. Now, this past Thursday night, December 3rd, second or third, whatever, third. I don't know, one of the days of last week. We went and saw Riff Tracks live, and they riffed on Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny, and it was hands down one of the best times I've ever had.
Yeah, I referred to it as it was like beer commercial type of fun that I had that night.
Yeah.
Just to have it was a really funny, it was as good as any stand-up comedy show I've been to. And this is simulcast. They call it Riff Tracks Live because they're performing someplace live. The guys, the former cast of Mystery Science Theater, they were performing at a Tennessee someplace in a theater, and then they simulcast it in a local theater. You saw it in Harrisburg. I saw it in New Jersey. And it was, like you said, what a great time.
Yeah.
They pad it up a little bit because it's one of those made for kids shorts or made for kids films. So they pad it up with some shorts. And between the shorts and the feature, Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny, if you take away one thing from it, it is that most people's attempt to make children's entertainment before 1980, if they weren't part of the Disney company, their shit sucked.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'll say 1975 because there are a few things we were going to talk about later. We want to talk some Christmas specials, but the ones we enjoy. But these are awful. Insulting at a level of like they thought this was going to entertain children. To the it was the cinematic version of Jingling Keys.
Yeah, it was, and I had seen bits and pieces of the film on its own because it was one of those ones that we had kind of talked about on in our former podcasting life. We would do a Christmas special, and that was one of the ones that kind of would get tossed around a little bit as something to do.
Yeah.
But I hadn't really sat through it on its own as just the whole hour or whatever it was.
Well, it was nothing that really passed into my life. The Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny wasn't like Santa Claus versus the Martians. I remember learning that when I was in 6th grade and got a hold of that and watched that when I was a kid. And it was awful then. As it is awful now, and a couple of the other things that we'd watched, some of the bad Christmas specials we knew about, we had seen clips of, but Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny kind of came into our lives a few years ago that we learned about it.
Yeah.
One of the things that, and it all kind of was a weird happenstance that we all kind of started talking about it, and then my wife went to go work for an internship, work for the guy who owns the rights to Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny. He was a dude who bought the film rights to a bunch of things as they elapsed, and this was the big name film that he got.
Wow.
Which is this piece of crap cult classic. But this RiffTrax, it is so phenomenally bad that it is perfect to goof on and laugh at. And we did, it was that whole thing was about 2 hours from
between
nuts.
Between them doing the three shorts, which in their own right were hysterical. They did one that was the story of Santa Claus. And I really don't know what the story of Santa Claus was, but they were talking about like pretzel monkeys and
the story of Santa Claus looked to be like it was from the 30s. It was very early, like Laurel and Hardy type of I put it in that same time period of like March of the Wooden Soldiers. And it was just kind of Santa Claus telling a disjointed story to some zoo footage of monkeys and chimpanzees.
It was so fucking weird.
Well, and telling these kids the story of how monkeys celebrate Christmas. That it's talking about monkey Christmas. And what I took away from the goofing that they did on it was great, but it almost seemed like just separately. I'm like, it feels like it's an affront to organized religion. It felt like it's pro-evolution, because at one point Santa Claus is like ribbing the kids a little bit. He goes like, "Well, you're monkeys too," and that old timey like, "Oh, you're a silly little monkey." But from this at this point, looking back to it, I'm like, this is a shot. Like, look at these silly monkeys that believe in Santa Claus and these things. It was. I'm like, I don't know. This is almost insulting on some level. This is this is how they like taught had the like backward masking of teaching evolution back then.
Yeah,
I guess this is how they got the idea down to people in the South or something without getting shot. They masked it in a fake Santa Claus special. But my God, it was like when they must have cast these Santa Clauses, they were just like, let's get the creepiest dudes we can find.
Yeah.
And I mean, Santa Claus from Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny, his Santa Claus outfit was so bad, it was like a guy who shows up at the local like nursery school bad. It's not like he wasn't even mall quality Santa Claus.
It was bad. It was, it was like rented it from Party City bad.
Yeah. It was, but I can't recommend it enough to people. They're replaying it December 15th.
December 15th, they're doing an encore. And this may actually be the go to the encore. Because I've been to a bunch of the RiffTrax live, but this was hands down the most fun I had at one. I went with Tom, who does the Hot Tag podcast with us. And we just had a blast. I mean, we walked out of there in pain almost because we were laughing so hard.
Oh yeah, my chest hurt from laughing so much. It was it was a good time. I was there with a couple of our friends from the previous show and some guys that'll be coming on with us in the future. Author Chris Jensen, who's going to do some of the horror stuff with us later on, and our friend the Mole, and we had a ball. I mean, it was 2 hours of laughing and then getting in the car and you're still laughing about it. And it was like getting in a car accident laughing. Like I was laughing and crying,
like Tom and I were harassing each other about it like 3 days later, just like random texting each other, just shit from the show.
Oh, we were doing the same thing. What was funny was I was telling them the story about my wife interning for the guy that owns the film. And this dude, I guess he was a lawyer, and then he got in a bad car accident, and he got he had some back problems, so he's handicapped. He walks with a walker, he's in and out of a wheelchair, that type of thing. So there's this dude that helps him out, and then so my wife was kind of taking direction from this guy's assistant. And in the conversation, I referred to him as the guy's handler. I was like, oh yeah, the guy had a handler. So the mole is sitting in the back of the car, and as I'm in like mid-sentence, he's like, handler? What's a handler? Like a lion? And when he says this, I just started laughing so much that my eyes are tearing, and I'm like stopping the car. I'm like, we're gonna crash. I'm like, I can't. I'm gonna put my hazards on. I'm going down US 1, and I'm like, this is it. We're gonna die.
Fantastic.
We're gonna die in a fiery car wreck, laughing our balls off. And then it just turned into Cowardly Lion impersonation stuff.
As well it should.
I don't have any ghost movies.
But
I don't believe in them.
But yeah, Tom and I were going back and forth and texting practically all weekend over that stuff. And they had, as they were rolling the credits for the actual riff tracks, the guys that do riff tracks have this side project called the Riff Tones, where they make songs about movies, kind of riffing on the movies in song. And they had written a new song for this event about the ice cream bunny. Yes. And that was their free giveaway. It was a free download on their website. So I immediately downloaded it and sent it both to Mike and to Tom. Everybody should have a This is one of the best nights I've had.
Well, it was, the 2 hours, the ride back, we're having a ball, and we decided we're gonna go get a couple beers. Kind of chill out, have a couple beers before you go home, and have an ease into the night kind of thing, or ease into to winding a fun night down. Then we walked into the fourth quarter of the Packers-Lions game, where Chris Jensen, author, is a giant Packers fan. So here we watch. Now we're watching his team's down 20-0. They come back and win with literally 0 seconds left. And we'll have a beer or two and calm down turned into we're going to have 2 or 3 more beers now after whatever we drank watching the game, so we could just chill out a little bit.
Yeah, you got to come down. And that was what I ran into coming, because I came home. I didn't go to the bar. Tom and I had gone to the bar prior. And like I came home and I was just wired for a good 2.5 hours after getting home.
Yeah, it was. It might not have been till 2:00 in the morning by the time I finally went to bed.
Yeah.
Because it was just to go from laughing my balls off to watching a phenomenal football ending. A fourth quarter, especially to sit there with a few Packers, because there was a couple other people on the bar that were Packers fans, and then even people that weren't there. Just to watch a game that ends like that. So I had, between being in a theater with a bunch of people and getting a reaction like that, and then being someplace watching football and a bunch of people getting a reaction like that, it was beer commercial type of fun.
Yeah,
it sounds like it was literally we needed the car, a limo driven by Spuds McKenzie to pull up and be filled with bikini girls. It was like Simpsons Budman type of oh yeah. But what a great, and I've been telling people, we always, whenever we go see one of these riff track things, we always wind up coming back real big on it and recommending it. And, maybe did we talk last week about them recasting the new Mystery Science Theater?
Yeah.
So that's been on my mind too. And then just to have, I was just in that zone, I guess, between, all right, I'm psyched for new Mystery Science Theater coming out. Here's some of the classic guys that do their own thing that's a little separate, but it's great in its own right. And it's nice because it's not like, I'm watching a weekly show, that they have enough time spaced out, because they take a couple months in between.
Yeah, they don't do them every month. They do them it's every couple months. They always do They usually do something around Halloween. They do something. They usually do a Christmas show, and then they'll have like one or two over the course of the summer, depending on when they can get licensing and all that.
Yeah, they've kind of been doing like summer blockbusters because they did Sharknado. They did
Godzilla.
Yes, they're
not the new Godzilla, the Matthew Broderick Godzilla.
Right. Independence Day. I know they're replaying.
They're replaying in January. They're doing Starship Troopers, which was
that's what I meant. Starship Troopers,
which was a fantastic time as well. And The Room, which they did in October, and I missed The Room. I missed going to see The Room, so I may have to go.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah, and The Room is one of those movies that I've only ever tried to watch The Room by myself, which is a mistake because I think you need other people to kind of realize how bad it is.
Yeah.
Every time I've kind of caught The Room when it's been on TV, I'm like, I can't do this. So and the first time I saw it. The Room was one of those great things. I think the first time I saw it was an April Fool's joke that Adult Swim did.
Yeah.
They, instead of doing their regular programming, they just showed The Room like back to back to back.
Nice. And I've noticed, and I don't know, I think I've gone to a couple more of these than you have.
Yes.
But I can, and I mean, this kind of goes back to the MST3K stuff as well. Is the worse the movie, the more fun it is.
Oh, definitely.
Because I've seen, the two I had seen prior to this one was Starship Troopers and Godzilla. Both horrible movies in their own right. But the ones I've had the most fun at were, the Christmas movies, which were, this year was Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny. Last year they did the Santa Claus. The year before that they did Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. And one of my all-time favorites was Birdemic, Shock and Terror, which is just a horrible fucking movie, but I love it. I love it in its own right, but them riffing on it was fantastic.
Yeah, it's a fun experience, and I'd love to go to one to see them in the actual theater. I don't know how much they actually tour that, or if they kind of stay on a base of operations.
I think it's always in that one theater.
Is it okay? So that means like road trip, because that's like somewhere. It's like rural Tennessee somewhere or something.
But
I think all of Tennessee is rural. That was kind of repetitive, isn't it?
Yeah. But road trip is always good, so maybe we can plan something like that.
Yes. But a great time. Everybody check it out if you get to go to their website. Anything that they do has been fun. They got the shorts. They got and they were promoting a new app that they have now that you can play the riff over whatever movie you're watching. You have it on your phone or you have it on whatever. So whatever you're watching at home, they have the riff stuff for it right there. It queues up to it like what's that app that you hit on your phone to tell you what the song is?
Shazam,
yes.
Which is my favorite app right now. But and supposedly it's gonna work in theaters as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to. Some of it I kind of took as a joke that it's going to work in theaters, but they did kind of hint that they were going to be riffing something that's going to be Awakening in a couple weeks.
Yes.
So I might look into that if they do riff it, but not for my first half dozen to a dozen viewings. But that got me thinking, going and seeing this horrible but brilliant Christmas movie, which has Santa Claus stuck in the sand in Florida, and then for some reason he tells the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. Now, yes. There are two versions,
right?
There are actually two versions, because one he tells the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, and the second one the other one he tells the story of Thumbelina. I don't know.
Yeah, and I did some research on that, and apparently what happened was that people who the Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny was made by an amusement park down there in Florida, Pirate Land. And the story that he tells that they cut to, which is a different little movie, was something that was produced separately like years before. So they bought the rights to those things and then just kind of plug them in there. And then they have the two different cuts that they can do. So I don't know if it's something that they showed at the amusement park and, this way they could change it every once in a while. So you had a different story.
Maybe.
But there, what's fantastic is the end of this, when the ice cream bunny does show up with the fanfare of like Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny or of some, beloved character that children all know and love. And it's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. And he's on like an old fire truck and he's like almost running over a pit bull. And
it is as ghetto Florida as you can get.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I highly recommend it if you can on December 15th. They're doing the encore. I highly recommend it. Especially with the stress of the holiday season. Sometimes you just need to sit back and laugh. And you'll quite possibly piss yourself.
Yes, I agree.
But as I was starting to say, that kind of got me thinking, for kind of a topic this week, was to think of some of like our favorite old school Christmas specials that ran when we were kids. And I mean, and not necessarily include the ones that still get run today, like
the classics like Grinch and Charlie Brown,
and
Rudolph and Frosty.
Those always get run. I think they get run, and this is just me, but I think they get run too early, and it's like all of a sudden it's like by the second week of December you've got nothing left to show.
Well, I know ABC's got the Charlie Brown stuff now. And they're kind of doubling it up. They kind of run it once earlier in the month and then a second time later in the month. Yeah. I know they did that with It's the Great Pumpkin, and they did it with the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. I'm sure they're going to do Charlie Brown Christmas twice. And Turner's got the Grinch, and they show that. I mean, probably they show it once a night almost.
Yeah.
Once things get close.
I'm not including those in, at least in the list I came up with. A lot of these, don't get played, but you can find them on YouTube, and I definitely recommend checking some of these out. And some of these I rattled off to you in the pre-show stuff you didn't even know about.
Right. There was one I was not at all familiar with, and one I haven't thought about since Ronald Reagan was president. So. Yeah.
And that first one, the one that you didn't know about, it's called A Wish for Wings at Work. And that is, I don't know how many times it aired. It might have only aired once, but it's Opus and Bill from Bloom County. And it's basically the story of Opus, who, for those of you that don't know, is a penguin. Penguins don't fly. So his wish to Santa Claus is he wants wings. He ends up, going through all these different, misadventures. He's being harassed by seagulls, I guess, the entire episode because he can't fly. Bill the cat is Bill the cat, but by the end of the show, as in most of these shows, he ends up kind of saving Christmas in a way. And realizing that, just because he can't fly doesn't make him any less of a bird.
Now, this was they never had like an ongoing series or anything, right? This was just special. I just pulled it up. It's 1991, and Robin Williams did a voice on it.
Yes, he was the cockroach, I believe. Not the cockroach, the
kiwi.
The kiwi, yes.
Yeah, I'm slight memories of this, and that was one of those things in that this was that point in the early Simpsons popularity where people just started digging at newspaper cartoons to, you know, the hipper newspaper cartoons to make animated series out of.
Yes.
And you know, in conjunction, you know, that's actually one of the things that I was thinking about when you brought up this topic to me. That goes hand in hand with this, and you know, the Simpsons first episode was the Christmas special.
It was a Christmas special, which is probably one of my favorite Simpsons episodes.
Yeah, and it was standalone. It was before the regular series started. It was actually supposed to be the first season finale, but the series got delayed. They had that one done, so they pushed it forward for Christmas to get it out there, and that's why the end of it, they're like, should the Simpsons get a dog? And then when you watch the whole first season of the Simpsons, they don't have the dog.
Yeah.
But I'll have to check out A Wish for Wings at Christmas.
A Wish for Wings at Work.
A Wish for Wings at Work. Yes. Sorry.
But yeah, and it's on YouTube, so you can find it. The other one that, and this kind of coincides with that a little bit with what you had said about the newspaper, the comic strips in the newspaper. And this is one that I hadn't thought about in years, and stumbled upon it last year. But I remember watching it as a kid, and I remember loving it. Was Ziggy's Gift, which is, Ziggy kind of, I don't even know if Ziggy's around anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. That when you brought this up, it's something I haven't thought about in 30 years.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it in 30 years until I had stumbled upon it, this time last year, just kind of looking for Christmas cartoons.
When we were kids, Ziggy was such a huge thing when we were kids, and I don't even really remember why, but that like he had a ton of 70s and early 80s popularity that, and everybody, you just kind of got, he was like a Hallmark gift.
Yeah.
You got people a Ziggy coffee mug, or you got people, and it was just kind of that, like, the theme of Ziggy was always life sucks, but hey, whatever, kind of.
Yeah, it was like life sucks, but there's always kind of some kind of bright side around the corner, I guess. This one is a little, it's a little sadder, I guess, at points. But that was kind of Ziggy's thing. Ziggy wasn't always, smiles and sunshine. But that's another one. I'm not going to go too much into that one, but if you're looking for something, I do recommend that one as well. Do you have any on your list instead of me going through my entire list all at once?
I kind of had things that I was going to kind of plop in with different things that you were bringing up.
Okay.
I don't get anything that really matches up Ziggy, and I'm trying to wait. What was the Ziggy one called?
Ziggy's Gift.
Ziggy's Gift. I was bringing it up on IMDb to check out some info on it, because I don't really remember. Did he talk? He
didn't talk. Ziggy never talked. So it was it was the characters around him kind of talked.
Okay. That I kind of remember. Ziggy's Gift, 1982. Yeah, 24 minutes. Christmas. Yeah, I remember it happening. Somewhere at my parents' house, I might be able to dig through an old pile of VHSs, and it might be recorded somewhere. But I don't have any memory of this. I do, a couple years ago.
I don't, it was 82, so I mean, it wasn't like we were, we were
six.
So I mean, yep. It wasn't something that we would have been big on, and I don't know why it really stuck with me. But it was like I saw it, and I saw it, as I said, I found it on YouTube last year, and I was just like, oh my God, it's Ziggy's Gift. I haven't seen this in 30 years.
I think part of the thing with Ziggy and the family association, I guess, with Ziggy, because of our common shared paternal last name.
Yeah.
There was always some things that we had a name that was close to Ziggy, so we still have a name. So that was something. I guess it was always around. I think people get those Hallmark gifts always showed up at my house for somebody somebody was always buying it for my mom or my dad or there was always a reference to it. But I don't have I don't have a ton of memories of this, and I just remember there being an occasional little Ziggy short animated piece.
Yeah, and so I said I don't remember why it stuck with me, and when I found it, I was excited for it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it, I'm kind of like, all right, I got to find it again this year and watch it.
And I know one of the ones that's on your list that when you brought this up, it came to my mind instantly, and it always comes up when I'm thinking about obscure Christmas things, and that's the Christmas in Pac-Land.
Yes, that was the next one on my list, which is one of my absolute favorite Christmas specials, and it was in that early '80s of the Pac-Man everything. Yes. Pac-Man hit. Pac-Man was, if you weren't there, you don't understand, but Pac-Man was huge. Had his own Saturday morning cartoon. They did a Christmas special, and again, it follows the format of most half-hour Christmas specials of main character has to save Christmas by the end of the episode. And this one was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, so it kind of, if I remember correctly, and I haven't watched it in a year, if I remember correctly, it kind of follows the same format of a Flintstones Christmas, where something happens to Santa Claus, and then Pac-Man has to go and become Santa Claus, and
that was essentially the story for almost all of those old '80s cartoon Christmas.
Yeah.
That a kid, something happened to Santa Claus, and whoever the main character was had to fill in.
Yeah. Again, a lot of fun. If you're a fan of Pac-Man, I highly recommend finding a copy of the old Pac-Man TV series. I picked it up cheap at one of the conventions we were at, and it's just fun, stupid half-hour Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Now, I don't know if I'm imagining this or if it was something that existed, but I kind of remember there being a Gary Coleman show Christmas episode.
I'm sure there was.
And that was the weird when he was the dead kid that came and helped people. He was an angel. Wait, hold on. I don't know if
I remember the show that well.
It was an animated Gary Coleman show. The animated features the character
he was dead
that Gary Coleman played for the made-for-television movie The Kid with the Broken Halo.
Okay.
So that was one of those TV movies that he did. He plays Andy LeBeau, an angel who goes to Earth and hangs. I had to click on the thing. Hangs out with some other children and helps them with their problems, occasionally running into a character named Hornswoggle. He is a guy who is the opposite of the guardian angel. Okay, so this was a thing where it was like a Saturday morning cartoon that he was an angel that helps kids.
I don't remember the Dead Gary Coleman cartoon.
It was Dead Gary Coleman cartoon. It was and I kind of remember it got kind of going hand in hand with that Christmas in Pac-Land. I remember that existing, but
yeah,
again, I could be I could be making it up. All right,
you're probably not. You're probably not. You're probably not, because everything back in the 80s had a Christmas special.
It's one of those weird, uncomfortable memories that comes back to you like a priest touching you.
Ouch.
Ooh, yeah. What's next on the list?
Next on the list is the next two. Actually, the next two on my list kind of coincide, and I know you got one to throw in here, which I
overlooked.
Shamefully left off, is A Muppet Family Christmas. And I literally just watched this one recently within the past week as we were putting up our Christmas tree. And this one takes place at Fozzie Bear's mother's house for Christmas. And it incorporates all the Henson characters, not just the Muppets, but Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock, I think there might have been some other characters that kind of show up in the background at times that were other Henson projects.
Mm-hmm.
But I love it. It's a lot of fun. Again, it's on YouTube. Pretty much, I think everything we're going to talk about at some point is on YouTube.
I do remember this one. I enjoyed that one. That was it was fun to see some of those characters interact. Fraggle Rock and the Muppets and the some of the other Henson special characters.
Yeah.
Sesame Street. It was a fun get together. You know, at least as a kid. I haven't seen it much as an adult, but I do remember enjoying that kind of. It was a crossover for the day.
Yes. Yeah, it really was. It kind of tied everything together. And then kind of coinciding with that is a favorite of mine. That is Christmas Eve on Sesame Street. Which I remember fondly as a kid. Again, it was a little bit of a little sad, but at points. But basically, Oscar tells Big Bird that Santa Claus, because he has no chimney, Santa Claus can't deliver presents. So Big Bird spends the entire episode trying to figure out how Santa Claus can get in the chimney or get in and deliver presents. Definitely fun. I mean, it ran on PBS, I think, every year as when I was a kid.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it still runs at some point. And then
it does.
The Henson one, there were a couple that they did. They did that Muppet Christmas Carol theatrical release, and they've done some other Christmas specials through the year. But my favorite was the Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, which was all original characters.
Yeah, and I can't believe I left it off the list.
And that one, it's in the tradition of 80s things being a little darker for kids. It was about like a real poor ass family and kind of like that Gift of the Magi story of I want to do this for my mom.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah,
she the mother sells something or pawns something that meant something to to the kid, and the kid pawns something that meant something to their mother, and that they're or puts a hole in the wash tub.
Puts a hole in a wash tub.
Puts a hole in the wash tub.
Because they need to make a wash tub base to win the money, and then they can buy mom a new wash tub and something else that you wanted, and it had a bad guy group of Muppets.
It did. It had a bad the River Bottom Nightmare Band.
Yes, that was like an evil blues band of bad guy Muppets.
It was like a bear and a snake, and I think a crocodile and
some kind of like dirty ass raccoon or something.
Yeah,
it was. They rode motorcycles.
Yeah, and one thing that I kind of, and this is a little on the darker side, that I kind of enjoyed about in a way about that one is they don't win.
Right. It's not about it's not about the Christmas miracle. It's about, being happy with what you have.
What you have. And, family and family and friends and all that. And where most Christmas specials, it's always, Christmas gets saved at the end. And this one, Christmas does, in a way, get saved at the end. But you don't have that, we win the contest, Christmas is going to be great, we're going to have a gazillion presents under the tree, all our problems are solved kind of thing. It ends well, it ends happy, but it doesn't necessarily wrap it up like you would expect.
They're still poor, but they're rich inside.
Well, they do get a job at the end. They get a job singing at the end, but
yes.
But yeah, they're not rich beyond their wildest dreams at the end.
No. Now, I had one, and it's not necessarily a Christmas special. It's just a Christmas episode.
Okay.
But out of every TV show that ever had a Christmas episode, my favorite one was the Married with Children Christmas episode.
I don't know if I ever saw the Married with Children Christmas.
They might have done more than one, but this one particularly stuck with me because it was their take on It's a Wonderful Life, where Al gets electrocuted putting up the Christmas lights.
Okay, I vaguely remember that.
And and after he wishes, kind of like maybe kind of the I wish I was dead type of thing, or that whole thing. So then his guardian angel has to come to him and show him what the world would be like without him. And his guardian angel is Sam Kinison.
Yes, all right, I do remember that.
And he's showing him his life, and Peggy's happy, Bud is successful, Kelly's smart. Everybody's life is better. And Kinison looks at him and he's like, Bundy, I failed you. You're right. You don't have anything. There's nothing, there's nothing for you to come back to. You were right to want to end it. And Al decides that he wants to go back because he couldn't bear them being that happy.
That's fantastic.
So he goes back to ruin his family's life.
That's a very Al Bundy thing.
It's a very Married with Children. It's a bad guy's Christmas episode.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it was just that, and in that typical Al Bundy was always he was the live action version of Wile E. Coyote. You watched the show to watch him lose.
Yeah.
And then in those few episodes when he did win, it made it that much better. And this is just what it was. It was the bad guy got the win for once for Christmas in his own kind of bad guy way.
Yeah.
But that's always my favorite. Occasionally Fox will replay that one special for Christmas. I don't know if they've done it recently, but that was that was a classic. And Kinison, he lived a few more years after that, but it was one of the last things I remember him doing. Before he died in a car accident. And then a little
way to bring the show down, Mike.
Well, it's kind of prophetic that he's the after we talked about dead Gary Coleman, dead Sam Kinison came back to help Al Bundy.
Yes.
Yeah, and speaking of dead guys, just two little side notes. The Bob Hope Christmas specials were always something I remember watching little pieces of. He would always do those USO Christmas specials where he'd bring somebody out to sing, or he'd bring just some hot chick out there to, wherever the soldiers were. In the 80s, it was Grenada or the Berlin Wall or whatever he was doing. And then I never actually saw the special, but it comes from a special, the music video that gets played all the time. The Bing Crosby, David Bowie, Little Drummer Boy.
Yes.
It's from a Bing Crosby Christmas special that Bing Crosby was dead for when it aired. The last Bing Crosby Christmas special, when him and David Bowie sang Little Drummer Boy, which is one of my favorite Christmas songs.
Yeah.
But that was birthed from that special, and that clip gets played all the time. MTV played the shit out of that at Christmas time.
Even as a song on the Christmas song on the radio, it gets played a ton.
Yeah,
and it's a great version of that song.
You got anything else on your lists?
Nothing on my list. So you got anything?
One more thing to mention that I forgot to mention to you earlier. And I watched it last Christmas, I think it was. It was on Netflix. It's not on Netflix right now, but the He-Man She-Ra Christmas special.
There's a reason you watched that, because that was the Christmas special we did last year on the former podcast.
Oh yes, now I recall. The last year's Ninjaverse, the very last Ninjaverse Christmas,
the very last Ninjaverse Christmas special. We did our very own riffing of the He-Man She-Ra Christmas special,
which is
awful.
Yes,
it's awful. And again, that same weekend that we were putting up the tree, for whatever reason, I watched that, and it's horrible.
It did not age well.
No. I actually got it for Christmas a year or two ago. It was like a stocking stuffer that was found for $1. And,
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
There was a
It's one of
stocking
those
stuffer that was found for $1, and it was probably 99 cents too much. But yeah, that's another one. It's just horrible. If you want to watch it though, check out the Ninja. Hype in the old podcast, unfortunately, but check out the Ninjaverse riffing of the He-Man She-Ra holiday special.
Yeah, I just kind of felt we had to bring it up if we were going to talk about holiday specials.
And it's so weird because I was watching it, and there's a girl that's like telling the story of Jesus, and then immediately turns it like, well, that's not the best part. The best part is we get stuff. It's like, and then Skeletor tries to kill somebody, and
Hordak, and then there's a bunch of weird robots and things. That was anyway. Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas was awesome. Go check
Emmett
that out.
Otter's Jug Band Christmas was fantastic.
He-Man She-Ra, not so much. No.
Trying to think of like any other really awful ones that I can think of, but
I think we're done with the awful. I know we wanted to talk about some of the things a little bit more off the cuff. We did a few awful, and we did a few that are quite enjoyable but lesser known.
Yes.
Something that makes all these bad Christmas specials a little bit easier to deal with.
What's that, Mike?
Mad Elf. That
Trope's Mad Elf
Christmas beer.
Absolutely. And that again, we in the past we've done these holiday specials on the former podcast that Mike and I were a part of. And for all three of the ones that we did, by the end of the show, I was pretty much 3 sheets to the wind because I was drinking Mad Elf. Which is a local brewery out here by me out in Pennsylvania.
And they're out here on the East Coast. They're brewed out there in Pennsy where Chris is, but they've creeped out. They've established themselves, as a microbrewery out here in the New York, New Jersey area. A lot of the East Coast has got them now, but their Christmas beer it's a 12 or an 11.9.
It's a 12. It's like an 11.5, 12% holiday ale brewed with cherries and honey, I believe.
Now, you were telling me that the last time you guys were at the brewery that they would only actually serve you 2.
They will only serve you, because it's such a high alcohol content, they will only serve you 2 at the brewery. And that includes, from what I'm understanding, that includes your growler fill, which I don't really understand because you really can't drink out of the growler on premises, and you really shouldn't be drinking out of the growler when you're driving, but I guess it's happened.
I don't know if they've kind of implemented rules across the board or because it's a micro brew that is in high demand now at the holiday season, with it being a seasonal one. We tried to pick some up for the weekend, and we're told that they were only selling 1 6-pack at a time. And it was getting picked up for a party, and Chris Jensen, author, had to kind of Teen Wolf his way into getting 2 6-packs. They weren't selling it, and he's like, "Here's the money. I'm taking the beer."
Yeah, just sell me the beer.
Sell me a keg of beer.
But this was
Teen
this
Wolf,
was a
ladies
beer.
and gentlemen, Teen Wolf.
This was a beer that we had. When I had moved out here to Pennsylvania, Mike had come out. We had actually done a tour of the old brewery, and they were talking about this beer. So we were really looking forward to the holiday season, and I was excited to get my hands on. It's different. It's not, if you're expecting a beer tasting beer, you're going to be disappointed, I think.
But it's not overly fruity or anything.
No, it's not overly fruity.
To me, it's almost close to like a holiday brandy.
Yeah,
it's a nice mix of a brandy beer type. It's got a brandy vibe, but in a beer kind of digestibility, I guess. If that's a word that I just made up. Digestibility.
There you go. You heard it. You heard it here first.
You heard it. That's premiering new words this year for 2016. Get them early. Digestibility.
Digestibility.
The other thing that
put that on a t-shirt.
Going hand in hand with the Trogs, because with the drinking that we did, we had the Not Your Father's Ginger Ale, the new spinoff of the Not Your Father's Root Beer.
Which, as I had said on the show last week, a friend of mine had tried and said that it was as good, if not better, than the root beer.
Yes, very smooth. And again, just something you could just keep drinking. It was like a soda. Trouble, you know,
it's absolutely dangerous.
The Not Your Father's Root Beer goes down easy, and this was going down even easier. So I'm a big fan of that already. And it was one of those things. I'm like, I could pour a glass of this, and then pour a little like Seagram 7 in there. And to make my own little mixer, and both things are booze, and it's winner, waking up on the kitchen floor. Oh, and to top it all off, I'll do one more drink recommendation. That's a big fan of us. We're drinking the Evan Williams Honey Bourbon,
which is fantastic.
Yes, the Wild Turkey Honey Bourbon and the Evan Williams are both great. And you get that Evan Williams, put it in like a rocks glass with one ice cube, and it's like its own mixer. It's just got enough honey in it, you know, enough of that honey taste to take some of the bite off of it, and goes down real smooth. It's our big favorite for walking around at the different conventions in a flask.
Yes.
If we're at a Comic-Con or a memorabilia convention of some sort, that one is a big support over here from the Planet X podcast and the Channel Z podcast network.
Yes, that has fueled us on past conventions.
All right, I think this ends our free advertising for
advertising. Yeah, and it's a lot of free advertising.
Yes. Well, we enjoy. We talk about what we love.
We do,
and one of those things
we do love to imbibe a little bit.
Yes.
Do you got anything you want to touch on before we?
Not really. We'll move on. We were, I guess, saddened to hear that over the weekend we lost Scott Weiland.
We did. I don't want to say it was shocking, because at this point in time it really wasn't.
No.
I was never a huge fan. Very talented. I mean, the band was great. You know, Stone Temple Pilots was great. He's with Velvet Revolver. I just, for whatever reason, I was just never a huge fan of Stone, at least with Stone Temple Pilots. But and he was 48, and he'd been kind of battling his demons a little bit, and he'd always hoped that he was going to kind of get a hold of them, and unfortunately, it seems like they got a hold of him.
Yeah, you'd hear. You'd hear stories. Oh, he's getting better, and then the time he was in and out of Stone Temple Pilots a few times. Then when he was with Velvet Revolver, they're like, everything's great. And then the Velvet Revolver guys are like, I'd never work with him again. And I'd seen him perform live twice, maybe 3 times. I know I saw Velvet Revolver once. I saw Stone Temple Pilots at least once, maybe twice. I saw them at a couple different festival shows, and I think I saw them at an Ozfest, and when 92.3 K-Rock out here used to be a rock station in New York, they did a Dysfunctional Family Picnic, and I saw him perform at the Dysfunctional Family Picnic when all the bands were fighting with each other, and not as part of a gimmick. Nice. It was he was pissed at Fred Durst. Fred Durst was being shitty to Scott Stapp from Creed.
Well, everybody should be shitty to Scott Stapp from Creed.
Yeah, and Fred Durst. It was really like if you rounded up every 90s asshole band and put them at a concert. But the 2 times I saw Scott Weiland, the 2 times I definitely remember seeing Scott Weiland, he brought the house down. He did a great show. But then I would hear horror stories about, Stone Temple Pilots went on an hour and a half late or 2 hours late because Scott Weiland wouldn't leave his tour bus, or he would just, those dudes in Stone Temple Pilots just couldn't deal with him anymore. When you have a band like that and a guy who, when you get him on stage, he's that good, because he was he had a fantastic persona on stage, good personality. And the thing that, not that I'm at all surprised knowing his past history and problems with drugs and things like that, but within a past week, I heard he was on the old radio station you used to work for. They had an interview with him on
WDHA.
WDHA. I was raking leaves at my dad's house, and I'm listening to a Scott Weiland interview, and they were talking a little bit about, now that Stone Temple Pilots is going to be looking for a new lead singer, and they were talking about Velvet Revolver and maybe Guns N' Roses getting back together and these different things. And he's got his own thing. He was doing his own solo stuff. And it's like, I'm good to hear, Scott Weiland's still out and about and doing some things. And within a week, he was gone. It was, that's the only thing that made it surprising, where I heard him and he was out doing good. But sometimes I think it's the tour, when these guys go back out on the tour, when they're home and maybe somebody's keeping an eye on them, a wife or a family member or something, when they get back out on the tour and the partying starts again and the wear and tear, and you're not sleeping as well, and maybe you're doing one thing, you're taking something to get you to sleep, and you're taking something else to wake you up. That does a ton of damage to your heart.
Yeah,
and that's what it seems like. That's what it sounds like happened from the preliminary reports that I heard. But it's he was a big part of that high school music for me. That early grunge stuff, early rock and roll stuff, and very early Stone Temple Pilots is very similar to Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
They were a rock band that kind of got piled in on that grunge thing. It was, excuse me, it was pretty much anybody who was putting out rock music at that point got labeled a grunge band.
That was grunge, yeah.
And that was really more of a fashion statement, I think, than it was a, we're putting out heavy music, whether it's somewhere in between punk and hard rock.
Yeah.
And Stone Temple Pilots was a great hard rock band. It was, and it brought back a little bit for me. I had a friend who passed away around this time last year who was a giant Stone Temple Pilots fan. And it kind of, and he had a drug problem. So it stirred up a lot of that memories for me of people I've known who've not been able to handle it, and just couldn't knock it off with the drugs and the drinking and that shit when they had to. And he's a perfect example. He had all the potential in the world, and he chose to do this. I'm not going to say he wasted it, because if he enjoyed his 48 years, then good for him. I think he left at least one kid, maybe 2. Yeah. I don't know if he was married currently, but it's just sad in general whenever you hear something like
and
this.
And again, as I said, I was never a huge Stone Temple Pilots fan, but it's definitely a huge loss. And kind of as we're not getting any younger, but we've lost some great musical voices in our lifetime. Bands that really kind of defined who we are now, in a way, I guess, as adults, between, Kurt and Lane, and now, Scott Weiland. It's there were,
and I think it happens. It probably happens in every generation for
absolutely,
some reason or another. And you can take it all the way back to like Hank Williams Sr.,
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know, you lost him and at a young age. He was 30 something years old. And then in the 50s, you had the plane
The
crash
plane crash that took Richie Valens and the Big
and Buddy
Bopper
Holly.
and Buddy Holly. Um,
In the 60s, you know, it was the drugs and the alcohol and the partying that took out people like Morrison and Joplin and Hendrix. In the 70s and the 80s, you had the 80s metal lost guys to weird, vehicle accident, huge contributor between Randy Rhoads and Cliff Burton for them both to die in freak accidents.
yeah.
In a world where a ton of other people are dying of drugs and alcohol, it was, some weirdness that kind of took them. And, a lot of times you sit there and you say, oh, what greatness could they have put out? And what else did they have in them? But, by that same aspect, if you took somebody who had 2 good albums and killed them then before they put out any bad ones, like, oh, this guy was a legend because he never had the opportunity to put out a bad album.
Yeah.
But when somebody makes it to, with Scott Weiland, with him to make it almost 50, you're like, that's a body of work behind him.
Absolutely.
And that's a strong body of work, but for, like you said, for guys from 25 years ago, for 3 out of if you want to talk about that early 90s, you talk Nirvana, you talk Pearl Jam, you talk Alice in Chains, and you talk Stone Temple Pilots. And
3 out of the 4 of those lead singers, are now gone.
Yeah, and then there's a couple other some of the other proliferary bands, Blind Melon, I'm sure there's other things I can't think of off the top of my head, but they've lost they lost guys too. So it's, I hate to say it's the nature of the business, but it's
but it kind of is.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's a you live that life for the rock star, and some guys can hang in there, some guys can't. And some guys don't know when to rein it in.
Yeah.
Or some guys, go back to it. Like, remember when Entwistle from The Who died?
Yes.
He'd gone back out on tour. He was doing a little bit of cocaine, too much for his heart at that age. And, he died after the day before their first tour date, the day after their first tour date.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning of that Who reunion tour, that Who Back on the Road tour. So I guess it kind of goes hand in hand. You get you got to take the good with the bad. The guys that are going to be prolific, the guys that are going to fade away, and the guys that are going to burn up, kind of.
Yeah.
Like a shooting star.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, you have guys that have been around forever and then decide to announce their retirement. Like the drummer from Rush, Neil Peart, just announced his retirement after 40 years of being in the band. Personally, I kind of hope that maybe that is, that's the end. I don't know if I necessarily want to see Rush with another drummer.
I don't think at this point they could do it. I mean, they just celebrated 40 years. And if you are going to have a point to say, okay, we're done, I could maybe see Geddy and
Alex
getting together, maybe with a couple other guys, maybe not being a 3-piece and fleshing something out, some kind of a super group and going out and doing something with some other people. But I'm not sure. And, Neil Peart has always been a weird guy. I remember him talking about retirement maybe 20 years ago because he went through some shit.
Yeah,
he lost his wife to cancer. He lost his daughter.
Like he lost his wife and his, I think his daughter.
Yeah, his wife and his daughter. He lost both of them to cancer, and he kind of would just. I know he just drove cross country at one point just to clear his head.
Yeah.
So maybe this is him. He's got to. Maybe it's not retirement. Maybe he's got to take some time off. But also at 40, he's got to be 60. Well, he wasn't there at the very beginning of Rush. You know, they did
No,
have
he
another
was-
drummer
he
at one
came
point,
in-
but
He came in, I think, on the second album. I think he came in as as their
Yeah.
drummer.
I think you're right.
But just as a rock and roll drummer, he's one of he's always been. I've always been a fan of his. Now today, I'm a little sadder that I have not seen Rush, because even if I do get to see Rush down the road, it's not going to be Rush. And they've been around. They've where I could have gone to see them, but there's always been circumstances where I never got to go. Money, or I wasn't going to be in the area that weekend or whatever. So that did kind of make me a little sad that I as big a Rush fan as I am, that I've never gotten to see them. I definitely, Rush is one of those bands I remember being introduced to. There were there because I don't really remember, growing up, I never heard Rush on the radio. I had, and it's, growing up a Catholic kid, I grew up going to Catholic school, and then I moved and had to go to public school. I had to go to CCD. And I remember, that we would have class at one of my classmates' houses, and he was a big Rush fan. And we would spend the last half hour, 45 minutes around listening to Rush. And, that was my introduction to the band, and I've been a fan ever since.
Yeah, I have a similar story. I got into Rush because I had friends in Boy Scouts that were big fans of Rush. And it was actually, there were two guys that I knew named Bill that were both big Rush fans. And it was probably right around the time that like Power Windows came out.
Oh, Power Windows is a bad album. It's a bad album. But yeah,
is that Tom Sawyer? Is Power Windows Tom
no,
Sawyer? Moving Pictures?
Moving Pictures is Tom Sawyer.
Okay, Moving
Power
Pictures.
Power Windows is when they kind of went like 80s synth pop.
When they went synth pop. Okay, yeah, that was okay. Sorry about that. I'm a big Rush fan, but I don't remember the name of any of the albums. I could rattle off names of the albums, but I'd have to like look at the album art.
I own Power Windows because I'm a completist.
Actually,
I
was
never listen to Power Windows.
I said Power Windows, and I pictured the album cover, and it's the one when the guy. I'm like, when the guys are carrying those big pieces of art, they're moving pictures. Oh, mother.
Yeah, they're moving pictures, kind of like Power Windows.
Power Windows.
No,
moving pictures, Power Windows. Anyway.
Yeah, but I mean the first Rush album I ever bought was Moving Pictures. And
yeah, I've seen them probably about half a dozen times. And they're a great show because they'd always go on, like no opening act. They'd play the better part of 3 hours. They would kind of like play, have an intermission, and then come back out and play again. They'd be like their own opening act.
Yeah.
And they'd mix in some of the new stuff. They'd give you a nice, they'd dig up, they'd relearn some of the old stuff, to play crap that you hadn't heard in a long time. And the Neil Peart kind of experience to see him, because he'd have the big ass drum kit that spun around, and they could do different things, playing all this different shit that you never seen anybody play before. The Rush documentary, they talk about him being like the Yoda of drums, that he just never stopped learning, and
he actually on that documentary, like he went and like relearned how to play drums.
Yeah, to keep it interesting and do to keep things fresh. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this retirement is one of those things where he's going to come back and have another piece and be able to do something. And maybe they're not going to do tours. Maybe, some of these guys, that's what's going on now. The rock stars that don't die are getting too old to be able to play.
Yeah.
That they're, or the wear and tear of the tour, that they're going to have to do different things. So maybe they're going to be a destination band. You know, maybe some of these bands now are going to start camping out in Vegas and being like, all right, we're doing 5 shows a week, playing to a different audience in Vegas, you know, or playing every other weekend at one of these joints.
Yeah.
And then they're not on the road and they're kind of in retirement, but they're still playing and, you know, maybe putting out a single here or there. That was one of the smart things that Rush has been doing too. Their last album, they kind of released it as singles over the course of the better part of 2 years.
Yeah.
So it kind of kept things fresh instead of it being all out there. People could kind of wait with anticipation for, I got a new Rush song. Oh, I got a new Rush song. You know, it was, they knew that radio was different and they knew that the world of music was different. And they adjusted to that, I think, well. They're a bunch of smart guys.
Yeah.
And
oh, absolutely.
I always said with Rush, when you went to go see them, they weren't like up there going through the motions. For guys that have been doing this, the last time I saw them 30 plus years, they were still up there smiling like a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
laughing and
just
enjoying
having a good time, and you're doing what they love to do.
Yeah, they weren't at no point when I've seen them was it like, oh, we're rock stars and this is our thing, and it was, oh wow, I can't believe we're doing this and we're so happy to be sharing it with you guys. You know, we're happy that you guys are happy to see us, type of things. And it was, you know, you want to say it's a very Canadian attitude, like, oh gee, thanks, oh, you know,
But yeah, but it kind of is.
Yeah. And you know, the other here's a good wrap up point to get us from where we were at the beginning with the holidays and at the end of our show now with Rush. Geddy Lee was mentioned in the new Hanukkah song from Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler, fantastic.
So that brings, you know, there you are, Rush and the holidays. Happy Hanukkah, guys, holiday. Or happy Hanukkah, Geddy. You know,
yes,
and Adam Sandler.
I'm surprised it took that long for him to be mentioned in the Hanukkah song.
Yeah, he goes. He's got some new guys. He's got some old guys. You know, this is his 4th Hanukkah song that Adam Sandler.
Yeah, but I mean, like, really, I mean, you know, come on.
Well, you know, it took him forever to get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. So it's
true.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, that's our first of a series of holiday shows because it's early December yet. Or
it's early December.
It's the beginning of Hanukkah. We really, that's what we backed ourselves into our Hanukkah special where we talked about Christmas specials all the time and eventually worked our way to Hanukkah.
Yeah.
Next week is our Kwanzaa episode.
We'll
talk about everything that we know about Kwanzaa.
And then the week after that will be whatever the Scientologists celebrate, I guess.
I think it's Tom Cruise's circumcision.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think that's what they celebrate. That's their winter holiday thing. That's
fuck. I don't know.
I really took the wind out of your sails with Tom Cruise.
You really did. I don't need to be talking about Tom Cruise's circumcision.
Nobody does. It's a solemn Scientologist holiday. It should be treated with reverence and respect. And you shouldn't laugh at it that way. You know, it's right.
But I before we wrap up, I do want to touch on this because this kind of falls into a little bit of what the fuck news. And you know, and this is regarding everybody's favorite crossbow carrying zombie killer. He was at Walker Stalker convention this past weekend. And he got bit by a fan.
And this is our logo. This is the Walker Stalker that we had gone to last year. This is the one in the New York, New Jersey area.
Which was just madness last year. And we went on a Sunday.
And you know, everything I've gone to with Norman Reedus in the past 4 years or so has been madness. The amount of women that line up to see this guy is phenomenal. Yeah, we went on a Sunday, which is usually like a dead day for the convention, and his line was
2
was
hours. I
insane.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that at least. And I've met Norman Reedus, and he's a super nice guy, and I've seen him and talked to people about it. You know, even now when he's got these big giant lines, and now with him being as popular as he is, he's still really cool to everybody, and he kind of has been this. He's been, I guess, respectful of the fans now that he's not just like, oh, screw you guys. It's
Yeah.
I'm great. You know, he knows where his bread's buttered, and he's being good to these people. And this is a photo op. And this was when you told me about this, I assumed it was one of these crazy 17-year-old, 19-year-old girls that are screaming their faces off and throwing underwear at them and doing all these things.
Nope.
Then I saw the picture.
She's a grown ass woman.
Yeah, but she looks like Crazy Cat Lady.
She does look like Crazy Cat Lady. She's got a shirt. She's wearing a shirt that says like Norman Reedus, Norman Reedus, Norman Reedus like 8 times. And as you said, it's kind of in the Cheap Trick font.
Yes.
But it was, I guess she was in a photo op with him and Rooker.
Yes.
And I guess she was just so excited that she bit him. Now, we've gone to conventions before. We've met people we've kind of been a little starstruck by people entire lives. Not one fucking time have I decided, you know what? Hey, I'm going to bite the dude.
Yeah.
It's to the point where it's like, it's not even like I've gone like, okay, I'm going to bite the dude. It's like, I kind of like feel odd, like even getting too close to him. Cause he's like, just,
Yeah. It's, I guess it's different when you hit that sex symbol level and guys react to things differently.
I guess.
I'm
probably never going to hit that sex symbol status. So I don't understand it.
But also, even from our point of view of it, of being just guys that are into things like, oh, I'm really excited to meet this guy. And it's like, hey, man, shake it like your work. You're talking like, I've stammered and stuttered and talking with some of these people where I've just kind of gotten flustered a little bit. And then I've met some women that have been sex symbols throughout my life. Elvira, Samantha Fox, Lita Ford, Tia Carrere. There's a ton of them. And I've never once thought, I need to take a big bite out of Samantha Fox right now, or I need to,
I mean, granted, that's every male's fantasy is to take a bite out.
I don't want to get up on a pedestal about this, but it's one of those like double standard things that women think that they can get away with inappropriate touching. At least I've seen it at conventions. I think some women have more so than guys. I've seen some very uncomfortable and awkward guys, and guys that have been very weird that that kind of treat cosplay girls like they're strippers or something. But
I've come across that, and it's not cool.
Women just kind of do and say odd things at times to these people. And not that I haven't seen men do it too, but there's a different perception, and it's in that physical contact, in that realm of physical contact. And I've seen different people deal with it in different ways. I was in a bar at a convention down in Kentucky, and Jason Momoa was there, and this girl kind of came up to him and was talking to him. She's like, oh, I just kind of wish you would throw me over your shoulder and carry me up to your room. So he picked her up, threw her over his shoulder, and ran out the bar with her, as a gag. But I was like, I mean, this guy's having fun with it.
But sometimes it's just that
he wasn't some 40-year-old looking crazy cat lady. She's a pretty looking girl. And I guess, that opens different doors for you too. If you don't look like a creep, you get away with different things, I guess. But
But,
I don't know. I never.
She got her, the crazy cat lady that bit Norman Reedus got herself kicked out of the con and banned for the entire weekend. And she lost like $200 in photo ops supposedly because she got kicked out of the con.
Well,
and Rooker was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
yeah, I'm surprised Rooker didn't deck her. I mean, Rooker is a hands-on type of guy.
Yeah.
You know, I've gotten manhandled by Michael Rooker at the same bar with Jason Momoa. You know, I had a dude leaning on my head one day to order a beer, and he's like, "Excuse me, buddy, I gotta get over here for a second." I'm like, "Ah," and it's Rooker, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm talking to Rooker for a little bit, but you know, that was a different. It was a bar interaction, and at no point did I decide, "Oh, I need to bite Michael Rooker."
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
if you're gonna bite anybody from Walking Dead, who are you gonna bite?
Who am I gonna bite from Walking Dead? Oh, that's a question. That's a good question. I don't know. Christina Serratos?
Yeah.
Maybe the chick that plays Tara. I don't know.
I've met her too. She's I'd put her on the list. What's her name was that was tiny? That Emily Kinney.
Yeah, Emily Kinney. I don't know if I would bite her.
She's cute, but she looks a little, you know, that's a little young on that. I don't know how old she actually is. She's touring music now. Have you seen any of that? She's playing.
Yeah.
She's playing somewhere down in Asbury Park over by me.
Yeah.
I think I missed it though. I think it was the other night, but
Beth is still dead.
Beth's still dead. Everybody stays dead
Everybody stays dead
except for Glenn.
except Glenn.
You know, I said, "Oh, we're running late. We're next week we're gonna have to talk some Walking Dead because we haven't talked Walking Dead at all in our 2 episodes of podcast life, 2 episodes of podcast rebirth.
Rebirth.
Bigger, better.
So we'll tease that for next week. I'd like to talk up Walking Dead, kind of what they did, what's on the horizon. Kind of, and I want to get your vibe on where you think they're gonna go.
Okay, that works. We'll talk about that next week. But we're gonna wrap up here because I think we have run a tad longer than we wanted to.
Yeah, I think about 8 minutes and 35 seconds too long.
Well, 8 minutes and 35 seconds in the grand scheme of things ain't too bad. But anyway, we're gonna wrap up here. You can find us at the Channel Z podcasts at wordpress.com. You can like us and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/the Channel Z podcasts. You want to shoot us an email, tell us something talk about something we talked about. Want to hear us talk about something? Shoot us an email at channelzpodcasts@gmail.com. And we will see you next week. I'm Chris.
I'm Mike.
And God damn it, stop biting celebrities.
Except if it's Shia LaBeouf. Bite the shit out of Shia LaBeouf.
Bite the shit out of Shia LaBeouf.